Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Infinite Danger Room podcast. We're here at Speeding Bullet Comics. We are going to do a podcast today kind of talking about some Superman speculation or some of our opinions anyway. Batman vs. Superman was recently out, and they've talked about going to yet another Superman solo movie. And we're going to talk about Superman's Rogues Gallery. Who would we like to see in a film? Who would make a good villain for a potential third Superman film? What are the strengths and weaknesses of that Rogues Gallery? I'm here with Anthony Brown and Chris Borthick, and we're just going to kind of talk about, the Man of Steel. He's so powerful. Who can stop him? Who do we want to see stop him? Who do we want to see try? And so, Anthony, let's start with you. You have got some opinions on how do you deal with Superman in a film with a villain? What's the problem with his Rogues Gallery? Give us your take.
Well, personally, I think Superman is the lamest of the mainstream superheroes. He has a title that's been around for 1,000 issues. However, whenever you make a Superman movie, the only characters they seem to be able to put in it are Lex Luthor and Zod isn't really a comic book character per se. He was just a guy from the original movies, or at least from my history with Superman. He hasn't come up very much in the comics. He doesn't even come up in the cartoon TV show. Given my age, that was pretty popular when I was young. So for me, I'm just kind of at an impasse with where do you go with Superman. He has some cute rogues, but they're nothing like the Flashes. And I mean, his rogues actually call themselves a gallery, and they team together. And I mean, they have an entire bit. When you look at Batman has 80 movies with 80 different villains and a couple of ones that have been retreads, but even the ones that they've retreaded they're so well done that they were able to write them in multiple different ways. But with Superman, it's how have you been around this long and you really don't, to me, have a gallery that's that strong.
Chris, what do you think?
Well, I think I pretty much disagree with that, but that's
that's what makes a podcast.
That's right. Well, I mean, I agree that while Superman is hard to challenge probably on a physical level, I think he has a great rogues gallery, and he's got countless people now. Have they shown up in the movies like they should? No, I don't know, and I don't really know why that is. But I mean, you've got the Prankster, you've got the Parasite, you've got Toyman, you've got Bizarro. I mean, Bizarro is a huge challenger when he shows up. There's Doomsday. Zod, yes. The Atomic Skull, which is pretty old school, but they keep bringing him back. And let's see, Reactron. Reactron and Toyman actually both showed up in the Supergirl TV show. So, I mean, they've recently made appearances on television, and since Superman's about to show up, maybe we'll see some of these people on television, if not in the movies. But I think that, now, if I remember right, and Matt, you can help me out here, wasn't there like a Superman Revenge Society back in the 70s and 80s where they did all team up against Superman? That was
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
So, I mean, they did do that back classically. Now, have they done it within this modern era? No. But they should. And as to the movies, though, I mean, that universe is so different than the classic comics. But Lex Luthor and Zod are the go-tos. I mean, but I personally thought throwing Zod in Man of Steel was kind of like Star Trek II using Khan immediately. It was like, maybe you save that for a little bit down the line and just show him being Superman and not have him just, against the big Titan right off. I mean, we've already had Zod and Doomsday now, so it's where do you go from here?
See, to me, I think the reason they went with Zod is to try to bring back the people with more life experience that saw the other Superman, right, Christopher Reeve. Mm-hmm. And so, because there's a generation or a generation and a half that grew up with the Christopher Reeve Superman and the Zod movies and things like that, if you go with Zod, then it's, hey, I'm sharing this with my kid because basically we rebooted this for your generation, but this is something I can share with my kids, right? Isn't that the rationale with what's going on with Star Wars or whatever and Star Trek is, hey, we're rebooting this, but this speaks to an entire older generation that you can get to pull in to bring your kids to it. Of all those villains that you named, I mean, I'm familiar with quite a few of them, but again, like I look at them and say, can any one of those individuals carry a movie? You know, I mean, as the main foil for Superman. I mean, hell, with what they did with Bane and Batman, like that was brilliant. And I mean, spoiler alert, like he wasn't really the guy in charge, right? But the way that they wrote Bane that way, like, I guess that's my thing is with the Superman movies that have been here, there still hasn't been one where they've taken a main villain or one of his more well-known rogues and said, "Here you go," because there is Darkseid, but Darkseid seems like he's more of a Justice League problem than he is an individual Superman problem. Because if Superman fights Darkseid and takes him out all by himself, then you've basically done away with any other villain you could throw at him, right? If you do that in a movie, Bizarro he seems more comical than a real Superman, unless you make him not like the deformed, misshapen Superman. Like he would have to be basically a dark Superman as opposed to, again, a knockoff kind of character like he's been portrayed in other, entertainment mediums for the characters. So that's where I come in on Bizarro. Like I could see you doing that, but he would have to be basically the Sinestro to Green Lantern. Like, hey, I'm going to stand for all the opposite principles and not just be, the monster of Frankenstein that's running around out here.
Okay, Superman versus a monster of Frankenstein type character. I can actually see that working depending on how they play it. Just a few notes. I'll just kind of run through some of the guys that I have, and maybe you guys each talk about how would they work, or could they work, or would they not work. You kind of talked about Darkseid. What do you think? Darkseid probably going to play into Justice League. Would any fourth world character work in a Superman solo movie, or could you have a Superman versus Darkseid in a solo movie?
I don't know that you'd want to do that since he's such a big villain for a movie. Now, Caliban would be a great choice for him to fight, because I think they did that in the animated series, and that could lead into something in one of the other movies if they wanted to do that. But he's not really Steppenwolf, maybe, who seems a little more
Mad side.
Yeah, he's a little more calculating and warrior-esque, I guess, and not so much. You'd have to do like a couple of the Fourth Worlds, I think, to make it work. Decide to be like the brains, and maybe one of those other characters to kind of be the challenge.
All right. You talked about Parasite as possibly a choice that you would make, because he can drain the energy from somebody, so that gives him sort of a thing against Superman. The question, I guess, is his story compelling enough? Because I think his powers are maybe compelling enough. Right. Can you give him a good enough story to make that work? My pick would be Brainiac. Brainiac would probably be my pick to do a Superman movie. If you look at the Jeff Johns Brainiac arc that he did on Action Comics, yeah, I think you could just about film that. So Brainiac would kind of be my pick. What do you guys think? Brainiac as a possible Superman film?
I think that he's the only rogue left from his gallery that's well known enough that he could carry a movie by himself, but also you could do some cool things with his past that connect back to his parents and his family and all that other stuff, but also it might be an opportunity to introduce some of the Superman family of characters, right, where you throw in a Mon-El or somebody like that and pull him into it. There's some really great things that you can do, because Brainiac isn't limited to being on Earth like to me with Parasite and some of these others, right? You take Brainiac, you put him into space, next thing you know, you introduce the new gods, the new Genesis, and maybe that's where Brainiac comes into the equation, right? Like it shows like just the new gods on New Genesis, and he's something that's discarded, right? Like Krypton explodes, there's Brainiac and his deal, and then it's like, hey, you just want to give a plug to something that may come down the road with the new gods and that whole family of people, especially if you decide to do what Chris is saying with Darkseid and his children and everything else. There could be a way to intermingle that, but to me, he's the only one of his rogues that are left that has it, that's that well known, that can be compelling enough to to carry a movie.
Chris, anything else on Brainiac?
Yeah, I've heard a rumor that's who they're looking at anyway with Brainiac. Brainiac being the villain and maybe trying to introduce like Supergirl and Hawkman and Hawkgirl in that movie. We'll see if that works. I actually had a thought about another really good story that would make a probably good movie. There's the Mongol annual that's pretty famous for the man who has everything.
They just recently kind of adapted into a Supergirl episode if you haven't seen it. So. But Mongol's a big physical threat. He's got space, ties. He's an alien, so you got an alien versus alien thing. So Mongol's certainly a physical threat. Mm-hmm. See, also on my list, another one I think might work, Metallo.
Oh, yeah, of course, Metallo.
Because you've got the physical threat, you've got him kind of being the flip side of the Man of Steel. He's a man with a steel body and a kryptonite heart. So I think Metallo, while he might not, again, the story arc might be the problem for a 2-hour movie, but certainly physical threat, he works.
Didn't they try that with Steel? Like, with the Steel movie?
As far as, I don't remember who the villain was in the Steel movie. It could have been. I honestly don't remember who the villain in the Steel movie was at this point.
I think Shaq was in that movie, so I can forgive everyone if we didn't see it. I didn't see it, but I could have sworn he was the foil there because
they could have used Metallo on that. I honestly don't remember.
I believe they've cast Metallo for Supergirl season 2 though, so he's gonna show up. So yeah, that's a great choice.
All right, this is just I think who wouldn't go to see Titano the Super Ape?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean honestly, giant ape. That would be tough to beat.
Superman versus King Kong.
Yeah, that would be good. Tough probably to do in a movie because of how silly it can be, but Mr. Mitchell Pitlick.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, cast somebody like a Jim Carrey or somebody, and maybe that would be interesting. Because he can kind of do whatever, so Superman's powers aren't necessarily a deterrent to him, because he can just kind of alter the rules as he goes along.
That seems to me like that's a rated G animated kind of a movie. Like if we're talking about big screen summer blockbuster compete with the Marvel machine, like I don't see that working.
Too silly for you. I'm not sure of this guy's comic book origins, Chris. Maybe you are. It's something I should know. But he made for a great arc in Lois and Clark, Tempest, the time traveler from the future who would come and mess with Superman and cause him trouble. I always thought somebody from the future is kind of an interesting foil for Superman because maybe he's bringing back weapons or knows how to defeat him because of information he has from the future, or knows about his secret identity because of information from the future. I honestly don't. I should probably know, but I don't know if he's 100% based on a comic book character for his original that show. But he was a good foil for that show. There's probably a version of that you could do in a film. Somebody from the future coming back to upset the Man of Steel's apple cart, as it were.
Yeah.
I guess I go the other way on that because, we just had an entire season of that with The Flash.
Yeah.
So, if you just... And, you're basically retreading, like, a Flash... one of Flash's main villains to make him do the same thing to Superman. Like, it's, two different guys with the same objective.
Okay.
So, I kind of go the other way.
That's a fair point. Other magic-based villains. I remember Mr. Z briefly, but are there other magic-based villains? Because that's a weakness of Superman that might bring some difficulty to him. Would you want to see Superman fighting something supernatural or magic-based?
For me, probably not, because, and again, we're on the other side of the spectrum, right? Like, we're on the far right of the superhero index, but how many people know that Superman has a weakness to magic? So, if he shows up and he's fighting some wizard or something like that, then how many people would be like, well, that doesn't make sense, he's Superman. So, and again, I'm talking about carrying the day, but to me, this goes to my greater point, right? Like, we're going down here and, how many people, if I ask the average man, right, if we were playing Family Feud, the top 5 answers are on the board with Superman villains. How many? No one's naming the giant ape. No one's naming Mr. Mxyzptlk, Tempest, and so on and so forth. Right? Like they're
true. But if you said name a superhero in 2005, nobody would have said Iron Man. So if you do it right, you can break through that. I think.
Right.
But I do think you have to do it right. This is I think, a decent pull for a possible, especially given what happened in the last movie, spoiler slightly, Cyborg Superman. You could bring him back, and you could even have everybody think it is Superman for half the movie, which would be kind of cool. and then turn it halfway through. I would kind of enjoy it if they did that. They probably won't, but I would kind of enjoy if you had Henry Cavill or something playing like maybe both characters, and you don't reveal which one that he's the bad guy until halfway through. That'd be kind of interesting to me.
See that to me that's the next movie, right? Like is the death of Superman as opposed to the Justice League?
Mm-hmm.
Because then look at all the people that did show up, right? Like the Eradicator or whatever his name was,
Mm-hmm.
Cyborg Superman, Superboy.
Yeah.
Would be good to introduce, and then like you've got all of these Supermen,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've created. I mean, you basically created a universe, right? Like,
Right.
And to me, this is one of my issues with DC, is that you already have the Flash TV show, but this Flash isn't going to be in it, right? Like the kid from the Flash TV show, to me, who's doing an excellent job,
Mm-hmm.
isn't the Flash in the movie. I think that they need to lean more like Marvel because their TV franchises are really good, and bring it all together. So that these characters so that it can be an interactive world and one can feed the other. Because Green Arrow at different points was a member of the Justice League, so you can pull, Stephen Amell in. Firestorm has been a member of the Justice League. So I mean, to me, it would be great to be able to bring these characters together. I feel like the Supergirl, the woman that's playing Supergirl, I feel like she would do well.
Yeah.
And so if you start to integrate these things, to me that only helps to strengthen the Superman brand
Mm-hmm.
and the next movie. But the way the TV shows are, they're a little bit lighter and airier. Arrow is the darkest of the shows.
Yeah.
But the movie end of what DC is doing, they're all shot really dark.
Mm-hmm.
They all seem really dark. And so I'd love to see them bridge that gap, strengthen the entire line, because, again, they're competing with Marvel whether they want to say so or not. Like, the reason the Justice League movie kind of got hot-shotted is because DC saw what the Avengers did and said, okay, we need to change our plans. Because before it was like, well, we aren't going to do a Justice League movie until 2020-something, and then it was like, oh, this Justice League deal... this Avengers deal is just blowing up.
I mean, I think given that they've cast an entirely different Superman, they're probably not going to cross the streams unless it was some kind of Crisis on Infinite Earths movie, which would be kind of cool, where you bring them together and they're from alternate universes. I would actually enjoy that. But that said, I think the guy they've cast as Superman and Supergirl looks pretty good from what I've seen, and I almost never like behind-the-scenes photos. They almost always look terrible, but he actually looks pretty good even in those. Right. So I feel like that may be closer to the Superman that I'm used to, the slightly lighter. I mean, I think it is tough with Superman if you go 100% serious all the time.
Right. Then
you have to do like your Doomsdays or your Brainiac. Right. I think if you make it a little lighter where there's a little comedy in there, you can sneak in some villains that maybe, if you're 100% serious, are harder to pull off. But if you're doing something like a Lois and Clark or even Adventures of Superman back in the 50s where there's a little bit of lighter tone, you can get away with a little more silly stuff from time to time. That doesn't come off as silly if you have the right tone in the show.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, the Superman animated series kind of mastered that, I thought, for Superman on television. It was just like a good combo of both, because the Mixoplick episodes are some of the funniest ones in that arc, and
right. And the Doomsday story carries, and I mean, I agree. To me, the animated series should be their template.
Yeah.
Because the way that they introduced those characters made them family friendly, but they also made them serious. Same thing with the Justice League, kind of the way that they came together. That entire Justice League franchise with the 1 hour, then the half hours and everything else. To me, it works, and that should be their template to pull from. Because even if they were to do live action adaptations of those stories, it held so well, it did so well for so long that when it finally went away, people were sad to see it go away. But now in the animated franchises, everyone's wanting the people that voice those characters to be the voice of those characters moving forward because of how great it was.
How good they did. And it did last from the early 90s till the late 2000s, just in that between one show or another being on and continuing on. So Superman, great show. Batman, all those shows were really good. Into the Justice League. Really great conception of the characters all the way around. So yeah, looking at those for inspiration, I would think would be solid as far as if you're looking going forward in TV or movies. Any great characters that we missed? Nuclear Man? Anybody want to see Nuclear Man come back?
Jesus.
John Cryer might be available as Luthor's nephew if you need him.
To me, I think that if they decide to go, if they decide not to take Superman in a solo movie, I think that there are some great Superman Batman titles, arcs that they could do. The Supergirl story was amazing. I think that Michael Turner's impact on the comic industry deserves, maybe some kind of media nod. To me, the one movie that I would love to see that would also introduce several other characters is the World Without Kryptonite or whatever, that I forget what that story was. But Shane Davis, the guy who did the Earth 2 Superman books, the first two of them,
Okay.
he did a story, Superman, Batman, World Without Kryptonite. I know it had something.
Okay.
And there were different colors of kryptonite, and each one had a different effect on Superman. They visited Aquaman, and a bunch of other people made cameos throughout. But the movie starts the series starts. Superman, Batman get into a fight. Superman gets some kryptonite stuck in his face and in his eye. Batman has to perform surgery to get it out. And then they were like, let's do something ambitious. Let's, eliminate all this kryptonite from the planet. And so that's basically what they do the entire time. They run into a troop of doomsday soldiers. And I mean, it's just a really, really good story. And I'd love to see that, because the twist at the end is Superman thinks that he's gotten rid of it all. And Batman has, a safe full of all these different types of kryptonite in the Batcave at the very end, and to me that'd be a great way to end the movie, as opposed to kind of these cookie cutters. Hey, we saved the day, so on and so forth. Not that the last Superman Batman movie ended that way, but it's, hey, this is what we're doing, and now it's oh snap, like what's going on.
All right, very cool. So I think that's we kind of hit some highlights of who we'd like to see in the Superman films and go into the future. If you have a favorite Superman villain you think should make an appearance, feel free to let us know. You can tweet us at Danger Infinite on Twitter, find us at Infinite Danger Room on Facebook, or email us at infinitedangerroom@gmail.com. Find our episodes on SoundCloud and released via News OK, and we'll be back next week with more about comics related items, films, these sort of things. Thanks a lot for listening, and we will catch you next time.